Good morning, students. I hope you all are fine. Today I'm going to cover the summary of the chapter Keeping It from Harold by P.G. Wodehouse. I generally cover the whole chapter word for word in Hindi, but this time I'm giving the summary of this chapter as this is the holidays homework for class 9 students of my school. They have to read this chapter after listening to the summary, and they have to make 5 competency based questions from this chapter. Now, what are competency based questions? First, you should know this thing. I hope many of you know. Those who don't know, they please understand. Competency based question means the questions which are related to the text plus to your real life situation. It means that you will align the text of this chapter, the story of this chapter, with your real life situation, and then you will make a question out of that. For example, question of diary entry, question of letter writing, or question of do you agree, not agree, what do you feel about the situation, what have you learned from the chapter, such type of question. Now please don't pick the question which I have said, that is just an example I have given to you. You have to think about it and make at least 5 competency based question linking the chapter, the text with your real life. Now you are supposed to write those 5 competency based question in your English notebook. But before writing those 5 questions, please make a mind map or a flow chart related to the chapter on the first page of the beginning of the chapter, and on the second page write down these 5 competency based questions. You need not to write the answers we will discuss in the class. So let's start with the summary. In this chapter we have 3 main characters: Mrs. Bramble, Mr. Bill Bramble, and their son, 10-year-old son Harold, and 2 minor characters. First minor character is the major, brother of Mrs. Bramble and maternal uncle of Harold, and Jerry Fisher, trainer of Bill Bramble. Now Harold Bramble, he was just 10-year-old, a genius child, well-mannered, always devoted to his books. He even won the spelling and dictation competition. Mr. and Mrs. Bramble, they were proud of their son because he was a genius, obviously. But there was one problem, that they were having this insecurity in their heart that their son, who is so intelligent, knowledgeable, well-mannered, he would not like the profession of Mr. Bill Bramble of being a professional boxer. So they hid this truth from Harold. They told him that his father was a commercial traveler. They do not reveal this thing to Harold, that his father was a professional boxer. Now Mr. Bramble, who was very aggressive and in the ring, and he was a very good boxer, in actual life he was very calm, he was very down to earth person, and he was not at all aggressive. He wanted to name his child John, but Mrs. Bramble, she wanted to name him Harold. So without any protest, Mr. Bramble, he let her wife named him Harold. He did not do any protest on the choice of Mrs. Bramble. He did not put his choice above the choice of Mrs. Bramble. This shows that Mr. Bramble was of very calm nature. He was aggressive only inside the ring. And Mr. Bill Bramble, he was very proud of his profession, and he kept a pile of press notices which he proudly showed to his friends, right? And but now what is the problem with him, that now he is shied away from any kind of publicity, because he is afraid of this thing, that if the publicity would be there, then Harold, the 10-year-old child of Mr. and Mrs. Bramble, he would get to know about the actual profession of Mr. Bill Bramble. Fine. So they did not want to tell this thing to Harold. So what happened one day, that Mr. Bill Bramble, he had to fight the last fight of his professional career, and he was under the training of a person whose name was Jerry Fisher. He and his wife, Mr. and Mrs. Bramble, they planned to use the money he would win means Mr. Bramble would win for the education of Harold, But what happened one day, that while doing the training for the last fight, Mr. Bramble, he left the training midway and he went back to his house. And he took a decision that he would not fight the last fight, because the news about the last fight would be in the media, and Harold would get to know about the last fight, would get to know about the real profession of his father. So Bill goes home and he was followed by the major, who's the brother of Mrs. Bramble, and Jerry Fisher. Now Jerry Fisher was really furious about this decision of Bill Bramble, and Mrs. Bramble was also shocked because she thought that they would use the money which they would win out of that competition for the education of Harold. Now Bill confesses that if he wins, the news would be all over in the newspapers, over the newspapers and in the media, and that would affect Harold. Now Jerry Fisher, he was very angry, and in a fit of temper he revealed everything to Harold. Fine, Harold came to home that very moment, and Jerry Fisher, who was the trainer of Bill Bramble, he told the truth to Harold that your father is a professional boxer. Now Harold, everyone was expecting that Harold would get angry on this thing, he would not accept this profession of his father, but contrary happened. Now Harold, he was very excited. He was excited with this thing. He was not at all upset. Instead, his reaction shocked everyone. Now it is essential to mention here that Mr. Bill Bramble was going to have the last fight with his opponent, and the name of the opponent was Murphy, M-U-R-P-H-Y, Murphy. And Mr. Bill Bramble, he himself was very famous among his audiences by the name of Young Pocky in his professional arena, right? So now Harold, he said that at that moment when he got to know everything and he was excited, he said that he had a bet with his friends that Murphy would be defeated by Young Pocky. And he said that he was not aware that Young Pocky was his father. But now, as he was aware of this truth that Young Pocky was his father, he would show off this to his friends. He would flaunt this thing to his friends. Now he requests his father for a picture so that he could proudly show it to his friends. Everyone was relieved with this behavior of Harold, as everyone was expecting the contrary. Everyone was expecting that Harold would get angry, but that did not happen. So everyone was relieved, and Bill goes back to his training. I hope the chapter is clear to you. Now you can do the holidays homework diligently, and if you have any query, please leave it in the comment section. Bye bye, take care, and happy holidays.